Well, today on the show, we're back out on Highway 49 in Gulfport across from Taco Sombrero at Performance Spine, talking to Dr. Robert Kibler. How are you? Good to see you again.
Good to see you again, Jim.
Now, we're in one of the exam rooms this time. I mean, last time we were here, of course, got some great background about your wonderful practice here. But you bring someone into the exam room. Hopefully they won't end up like that.
Sure.
But what are the steps that you go through, and what are you looking for?
Okay, so as you see, I have a number of models here and so forth. Again, I'm trying to figure out what the patient's problem is and use these tools to help me help them.
Right.
So for example, I have a digital x-ray on the computer that I can cast to the screen behind you, which the patient can see, and I can discuss that with the family. Mm-hmm. And so I talked about specialized studies and things that they would need after they'd failed different modalities that had not been done, a new kind of a workup, a more extensive workup.
Right.
And so I use this as a primary modality where I can show the patient what's going on. Many times the patient's never even really seen their x-rays or their studies. I think the chiropractors are pretty good about that, but they show them their x-rays.
Right.
But a lot of times they don't see all the other stuff that I see. So I use that, and then I use the models to connect the images to that. I also do an exam on this movable table, so that it's varies for height and so forth, and that allows me to do a thorough physical exam so that I can detect any neurological areas of concern.
Right.
Most of the patients that I'm treating are going to have some sort of neurological deficit. They're having balance difficulties, loss of coordination, numbness, tingling, weakness is a big one. Sometimes they'll have unremitting headaches that have not gotten better. That's a sign that potentially the spinal cord could be involved. And so those are things that I'm looking for, sort of ominous signs that are lost in terms of the normal modalities. And you'd be surprised how many people we actually see because they've been, you know, for one reason or another, they've never thought about surgery as being
well, you touched on one thing, and let's talk about that for a little. People with headaches. You hear people all the time, I can't get rid of this headache. It just goes up the back of my neck or whatever. These are issues that could be, of course, probably so, in line with your back and your spine.
Okay, so I will tell you that headaches, I've had people with 20 years of headaches, and if they have and we're talking more than 15 a month, they've had Botox, they've had every single thing that they can possibly have. Most of the time they're on some sort of pain medication. Mm-hmm. What you find when you examine those patients, though, and do a neurological exam, you find that their reflexes are up. You find a lot of symptoms of potentially spinal cord compression, which is an ominous problem. So it's not just the headache. The headache that goes up the back of the head is a potentially dangerous situation. You have to do all the studies, you have to examine the patient, but when you find these patients, and they're everywhere because they hide out in pain clinic and they don't realize that that's their problem, it sneaks up on them. They have loss of coordination in their fingers, they have balance difficulties that are not necessarily related to dizziness. Anyway, it's a fairly complicated issue. But when you find those patients and you operate on them, the headaches instantaneously go away. They will literally come in 3 weeks after surgery and say, "Doc, I haven't had a headache in the past 3 weeks. This has been going on for 20 years. So that's how dramatic this can be for that reason. And some people just have garden variety headaches, but when it's coming through the back like this and they're not going away with medications, or you're having to resort to opiates and things that are going to...
Any kind of painkillers you can get.
Well, the problem with medications is that those alone can disable you. Okay, there's a study that just came out about the fact that, you know, the workforce participation during the opioid crisis, just the participation of men and women, has dropped dramatically, you know, correcting for all other economic factors. So this is not a way, we're disabling people that way. This is not, my practice is performance spine. I'm not here to disable people, I'm not part of that game. I'm here for people that legitimately want to try to get back, restore their function, have a good life. The working man and woman that's losing touch with their families, their community, their jobs, because of these disabilities. And they've had a lot of different things tried. They've been, many times, they don't feel good about themselves because they've, you know, when you fail a certain modality, sometimes the patient walks away feeling as if, I've failed the doctor somehow. There's something wrong with me. Yeah. And that's not the case. So it's difficult, but we work with those patients a lot. My staff does. My staff's trained to do it. Yes, sir?
What are some of the, let's talk about age groups.
Yes.
And what you see as far as spinal issues.
Yes.
I mean, I'm sure they can be young,
yes,
all the way up to, there are different things, all the way up to seniors.
Yes, and I can see any of those patients, but what I focus on, and I see a lot of kids, but generally pediatric stuff, I refer out to some people that just do that, in New Orleans and Alabama and so forth. But mostly I'm working on working men and women that want to stay working, that want to keep their lives intact. Or I'm working on elderly people who have great minds, there's nothing wrong with them, their backs are broken down.
The mobility factor has gone down quite a bit.
Yes, and they're either going to succumb to their physical maladies, or we restore those spines and they return to more or less a normal type of function for that age group, where they can go to church, they can work out in the garden, they can do those things. And that's when I'm looking at a patient, that's my goal. If I feel like I can get them there, that's why I do such a detailed analysis. I can't guarantee you 100%, but I'm looking well into the 90 percentile or 95 percentile to get them there. And if that patient doesn't need surgery, I'm the first one to tell them, you don't need this, we're going to do something else.
Right.
I'm not, because otherwise I would run my percentages, right?
So when they come in here, you get a diagnosis and you show them on the computer where there's issues.
Examine them,
explain to them, and then tell them this is what this is what we can do for you.
Right. I show them the models, and so for example, like there are motion preserving technologies. For example, in the neck, you can do a cervical disc replacement. This little bad boy here moves just a little bit. Now, the thing about it is people think that they're so afraid of losing motion. Each segment that you operate on or don't operate on doesn't really move that much. You're about talking about 5 degrees. And when they're diseased like this, they don't move at all. So you don't really lose motion. And you don't lose function from the surgery. You gain it. And that's the key. That's what I'm looking for. If you're going to lose function, we're going to.
You want that performance out of that spine.
I want that performance out of that spine,
there
baby.
You go.
That's it.
That's exactly why they're called performance spine.
Exactly.
So thank you. It's always great to come out here and talk to you. It's really interesting stuff.
Thank you.
So if you'd like some more information, of course, you can call, set up an appointment. You can, they're located on Highway 49 in Gulfport, across from Taco Sombrero, easy place to find. If you're having some issues with the back, headaches maybe or something like that, get some relief with Performance Spine in Gulfport.